Hi, I'm Lisa Conway, Vice President of Sustainability for Interface, and today I'm talking to you about an industry collaborative called materialsCAN. materialsCAN stands for the Materials Carbon Action Network, and we really started this because if I were to stop someone on the street and ask them if I could talk about embodied carbon, they would probably say no. But hopefully you'll see some recognized industry leaders, and we are all out there having a conversation about the important issue of embodied carbon. The original collaborators for this initiative are Skanska, Interface, Gensler, Armstrong Ceiling, CertainTeed, and USG. Even just since we've started, we've actually added Superior Essex and Kingspan as well. The mission of materialsCAN is to drive awareness and take action on the highest impact aspect of energy consumption in the building industry. To ground us, it's really important to understand that this is about people. This is a slide from the CDC that actually shows climate change's impact on human health. In the center, the wheel is appropriately turning or churning the environment. So things like rising temperatures, increasing CO2 levels, rising sea levels, all of that leads to an impact on the environment that people share. As all of those events happen, it leads to this secondary wheel. Things like air pollution, changes in vector ecology, which are insects that can carry disease, increasing allergens, water quality impacts, and more. Those lead to the outer wheel, which are the things that we actually experience either ourselves, our kids, or our communities. Things like asthma, not caused by climate change, but exacerbated by climate change. More people feel more symptoms. Things like Lyme disease, where as our seasons are longer and there's a longer opportunity for insects to breed, they can spread more and more disease, more possibility of infection of people. Things like respiratory allergies, something that I didn't suffer 5 or 10 years ago, and now is just kind of always there. And then even things like forced migration and civil conflict, where if I can't grow crops on my land anymore and I have to move my family, I may or may not have the means to do so. Obviously, that leads to significant mental health impacts. So I think if we understand that this is really about us and not about people over there, we can have a little bit more urgency when we think about the opportunity to address climate change. This is a visual definition of embodied carbon. So operational carbon is the carbon that is released into the atmosphere when we operate buildings. Embodied carbon is the amount of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere when we make the materials to make the buildings and construct the buildings. So this is a really helpful visual to understand. Now I'm going to jump into why this is really important and some research that was done by Architecture 2030. So typically when we think about the life cycle of a building, say 80 to 100 years, the larger carbon impact is going to come from operating that building. That's why we've had systems like LEED, which have become code, and why operational energy has been such a focus. The issue with that thinking is that depending what you read, we have between 8 and 13 years to really address global warming in a significant way. And buildings are 40% of the contribution to global warming. So what Architecture 2030 did was take a 30-year slice of where are these carbon emissions going to come from when we talk about global new construction, so assuming that they're built to the most recent energy codes. And the answer is kind of surprising because we've been addressing operational carbon for a long time. We know that if we save carbon emissions, we also tend to save money. But when we look at the division of operational and embodied, it's about half and half. Half of the emissions that will be released into the atmosphere come from making the materials that make the buildings and constructing the buildings, and the other half come from operating the buildings in the next 30 years. So high level, the 4 goals of the group are to drive awareness, share methodology, take action, and expand the partnership. So The first thing is really what we're doing today, things like creating awareness. The second bullet point and third bullet points are really where you can come in. Create a methodology for how to prioritize embodied carbon in specifications and then share that. One of the most important things that we can do to address global warming is to talk about it. The more we talk about it, the more we can achieve solutions together. The third bullet point here is to highlight case studies on low embodied carbon, which is a reduction from baseline, carbon neutral, and then carbon sequestering interiors. This is what really gets me up in the morning. Instead of reducing how much bad we're doing, start to measure how much good we're doing and start to say that our interiors and eventually our buildings are part of the solution to reversing global warming. The how in the past has been very hard. We've had these EPDs, environmental product declarations, available for a long time. We get rewarded often for collecting them and making sure that a manufacturer has an EPD, but we haven't used the information within them for decision-making criteria. If we could, this is an example of what we would see for a given material category. So this is an example for carpet tile, where if we actually start to understand the embodied carbon for the different product types, then we can start to make decisions around embodied carbon and, of course, other performance and other types of criteria. This is a visual example of a tree diagram that shows a baseline scenario and then a final design. Get used to seeing numbers as high as 43%, sometimes even higher, because it's once you pay attention to the embodied carbon of the material that you're specifying and find alternatives, it's really a high reduction that is reportable and measurable for you to be able to share with your client or to do reporting in your own firm or organization. Last year at Greenbuild, the Embodied Carbon in Construction Calculator was launched, EC3, which is available for free at buildingtransparency.org. This is a program that has plugins to programs like Tally, BIM 360, and more. And this is a great way to remove the barrier for organizations to start prioritizing embodied carbon in their specifications and on their projects. There's 9 material categories, from concrete and steel all the way to interior products like ceilings, drywall, and carpet tile. And this is allowing for both policy to be created, and it's all based on third-party verified EPDs. Even if you never use the tool, you'll start to see embodied carbon in more places in the industry, like on declare labels, where you can start to see a green arrow, meaning that the embodied carbon for this product is below the 20% threshold for a given product category. It's also becoming part of LEED. So there's a low carbon construction materials pilot, and it goes through a methodology for you to start thinking about embodied carbon on your projects, whether you're going for a LEED project or a LEED certification or not. And then really just for more information around this topic, I recommend 2 books. One is Drawdown, which is kind of beyond the built environment and proposes 100 solutions to reversing global warming. And each solution is just 2 pages, big pictures, really easy to get through. You can flip through 10 solutions to reversing global warming at lunch. And then the second is really specific to our industry. It's called The New Carbon Architecture by Bruce King. Chapter 1 is a great education on embodied carbon, and then the rest of the book is really dedicated to understanding materials that naturally store carbon. Think of how to think about the materials to develop that carbon sequestering interior. So with that, I want to thank you for your time today, and if you want any more information, you can go to www.materialsCAN.org. Thank you.